Hey guys, tonight we slip through the heavy, salt-damp air of a distant port where the moon hangs low and lanterns sway above creaking wooden docks. You're not a traveler here by choice. In fact, your wrists already ache from rope burns and the smell of the sea mixed with sweatfish guts and unwashed humanity sticks in your nose like it's planning to rent long-term. You probably won't survive this, but that's the fun part of our little time travel experiment. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments so we can see who's awake with us across the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts with a commotion. A sudden shout in a language you barely know, followed by a hand gripping the back of your neck. You'd thought you were safe inland, but the Ottoman Empire's slave raiders had a long reach. North Africa, the Balkans, the Black Sea coast. They were all fair game. One moment you're fishing in shallow waters, the next you're shoved into the bottom of a boat, face pressed against damp planks. The mainstream history books will tell you about trade routes and imperial expansion, but they rarely mention the precise sound of someone's boot squelching in seawater inches from your ear. Days blur. The sun beats down until your skin feels like salted leather. The food, if you can call it that, is a mash of grains and beans ladled into your cupped hands. You drink from a shared bucket, and your lips touch the same edge as a dozen others. There's a kid next to you, maybe 12, who mutters a prayer in Greek. Whether it's for rescue or a quick death, you can't tell. Historians still argue whether Ottoman slave raids were mostly economic opportunism or a deliberate political strategy. But from where you're sitting bent over in a stinking hold, the debate feels very academic. When the port finally comes into view, the relief is short-lived. The city sprawls like a jeweled spider across the water's edge, tall minarets, domed mosques catching the light, narrow streets, twisting in ways your captors know and you don't. The smell changes to less brine, more spice and baking bread, but overlaid with something metallic and sharp, the smell of iron chains. You're herded down a gangplank onto cobblestones still warm from the sun legs, wobbling like undercooked noodles. People glance your way, but their eyes slide off quickly. You're not a person here. You're cargo. Your captors speak quickly to a man in a turban edged with gold thread. He inspects you like a tailor might inspect, fabric checking, teeth pressing fingers into your arm to feel the muscle. It's not personal. It's business. Somewhere coins change hands, the chink of silver disappearing into the deeper folds of a robe. You think about running, but there's nowhere to go. The streets are a maze, the language a puzzle you can't yet solve. Besides, you're barefoot, and the stones are already chewing at your soles. They lead you away from the port toward a massive covered market. The roof is latticed wood, cutting sunlight into sharp lines across the floor. It's hot enough that sweat drips down your back, but you notice your captors aren't rushing. They're walking you like someone walks a prize animal, saving the reveal for the right crowd. You've entered a world where your life has a price tag, and the haggling hasn't even begun. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the call to prayer echoing through the streets. It's beautiful in a way that makes your stomach twist. How can something so serene exist in the same place as the knot of fear sitting just under your ribs? That contradiction is going to be your constant companion. If you're lucky, you'll adapt. If you're unlucky, well, let's not think about that just yet. The smell hits you first. Not the warm, yeasty aroma of bread from the outer stalls, but the sour-sweet blend of sweat perfume oil and animal musk that hangs over the slave market like a stubborn cloud. You step into a vaulted hall where sunlight pours through patterned skylights, painting the stone floor with shifting mosaics. People move in currents, buyers in silks and satins, their shadows stretching long, and sellers in plain linen eyes scanning for the next profitable bid. And you're in the center of the theater, though not in the role anyone wants. Your captors shove you toward a raised platform. It's not exactly a stage, but the way the crowd gathers makes it feel like one. You're aware of your posture, the tilt of your chin, the set of your shoulders. Not because you care to impress, though you might have to, but because every twitch is read like handwriting. Too much defiance and you're trouble. Too much droop and you're weak. Neither label fetches a good price. The auctioneer, a wiry man with an embroidered vest, calls out your traits in a booming voice. Age, presumed origin, physical condition, facts reduced to bullet points. Mainstream historians often note that the Ottoman slave market was highly organized, with tax records, inventory logs, and even set market days. But they skip over the part where you're told to open your mouth, so a stranger can check your teeth like you're a melon. A man in a tall red fez approaches, circling you once. His perfume is heavy rosewater with a hint of musk, and it almost masks the tang of fear in your own sweat. He pokes at your arm, then asks a question you don't understand. The auctioneer answers for you gesturing broadly, the words rolling quick and smooth. You have no idea what's being promised. Strength, obedience, a miraculous talent for grinding wheat. For all you know, you've just been declared an expert in juggling scimitars. Somewhere to your left, another sale is in progress. A boy your age is being spun around for inspection. His hair is wet, someone's oiled it for the display, and his eyes are glassy with either exhaustion or tears. A woman in green silk clicks her tongue and shakes her head, moving on. The boy has pulled aside, his price perhaps too high, or his condition not quite up to the buyer's standards. Historians still argue whether these markets were more refined compared to their European counterparts. But to you, the difference is like comparing brands of sandpaper. You're still getting scraped. Then comes the moment, the raised hand, the nod from the auctioneer, the quick clatter of coins on a tray. Ownership changes in seconds, as if you were nothing more than a bolt of cloth. Your new master, or at least the man who paid, doesn't speak to you. He merely gestures for you to follow. You step down from the platform, knees shaky, feet aching from the hot stone. On the way out, you pass stalls selling pomegranates, bolts of silk, and trays of sweets dusted with powdered sugar. It's maddening beauty and luxury right here, a hand's breadth away, and you're not allowed to taste or touch. You trail behind your new owner through narrow alleys, past walls, tiled with blue and white patterns so intricate, you almost forget to be afraid. Almost. He stops in a quieter lane where the crowd thins. A servant emerges from a doorway and takes your arm, not roughly but firmly. You're led inside where the air is cooler, smelling faintly of mint and damp stone. The servant looks you over once, then disappears. You stand alone, listening to the muffled hum of the street outside, waiting to find out whether you'll be polishing marble floors or hauling sacks of grain until your shoulders break. You realize something. Then this was the easy part. Your placement comes with no ceremony, no drawn-out decision-making or thoughtful consideration of your talents. You're a resource, and resources get assigned. The servant who fetched you from the market returns with instructions you can't fully understand, though the tone makes one thing clear: Tillo, don't ask. You trail behind through a courtyard, shaded by grapevines, and echoing with the splash of a fountain. Somewhere above, swallows dart in and out of the eaves, their freedom a little too on the nose for your taste. In the Ottoman system, a slave's fate could be wildly different, depending on where they landed. The palace was the pinnacle, ornate halls, silk slippers, and work that required more patience than muscle. The fields, on the other hand, meant blistered feet, endless heat, and a constant battle with soil that didn't care if you lived or died. Historians still argue whether the empire's domestic slaves had it better than agricultural ones. But you're not especially comforted by the comparison. The servant leads you down a narrow corridors or into what looks like a storeroom. Rows of baskets, clay jars, and bundles of dried herbs hanging from beams. A woman in a long, pale blue dress looks up from measuring rice. She says something brisk in Turkish, and though you don't know the words, her tone screams you're late. You're handed a small broom made of tied twigs, and motion toward a corner where dust collects like it's being paid rent. The hours that follow blur into a rhythm sweep: carry, fetch water, repeat. At first, you try to keep track of time by the position of the light through the lattice windows, but it moves too quickly to matter. At some point, you're given bread, flat, warm, and chewy, and a ladle of lentil soup. It's better than the ship rations, but not exactly a feast. You notice that the servants sit in a kind of hierarchy, older, longer-serving ones, closer to the head of the table. Newcomers, like you hovering near the wall. After your first day, you're led to sleeping quarters. It's a shared room, little more than a rectangular space with mats along the walls. The air smells faintly of sweat straw and smoke from the kitchen fire. You claim a mat in the corner, only to be nudged aside by someone who clearly outranks you. You end up near the door, where the night breeze sneaks in, but so do the mosquitoes. Word trickles down that your master owns both this urban home and agricultural estates outside the city. You're not sure yet where you'll be sent long-term, but the possibility of being moved looms over you like a thundercloud. City life at least offers the illusion of comfort. Colorful markets, the hum of conversation, the sight of gold-domed mosques in the distance. Out in the fields, the horizon would be nothing but dirt and sky. One evening, while carrying a basket of figs from the courtyard, you overhear two older servants talking. They mention someone who once worked here being sent up to the palace. The phrase is loaded, carrying both envy and dread. For some it meant better food and fine clothes. For others, it meant vanishing into a world of strict discipline and invisible rules where one wrong glance could ruin you. Your hands ache from the day's labor, but you're starting to notice patterns, the way the head servant's voice softens around certain visitors, the way deliveries arrive on specific days, the quiet glance people give before speaking about upstairs. You're learning without meaning to, because in this place, knowledge is the only currency you can gather, without permission. As you lie on your mat that night, the city's distant hum lulls you. Somewhere, music drifts in an oud played, slowly notes lingering in the warm air. It's beautiful. It's cruel. And it reminds you that this empire is not just marble and power. It's built on the quiet shuffling of feet like your. You wake to hushed voices and the sound of soft-soled shoes scuffing the stone floor. The head servant's shadow fills the doorway, and with one clipped gesture you're told to get up. There's no breakfast, just a command to follow. You shuffle through the courtyard in the half-light before dawn, past the fountain, and under a low arch that leads to the street. A covered carriage waits its wooden panels carved with delicate floral patterns. You climb in, heart thudding. The ride is long enough for you to wonder whether you've been sold again. But when the carriage stops, the smell of rosewater hits you, and you see high walls ahead. Above them, the spire of a minaret and the edge of a tiled dome. You've arrived at a palace gate, not the grand Topkapi itself, but one of its affiliated compounds. The guards wear rich sashes and curved swords, their faces unreadable. You're led inside. The air here is different, cooler, perfumed, and strangely quiet, despite the size of the place. Your sandals whisper over mosaic floors in patterns so intricate they almost make you dizzy. You pass through an archway into the harem, a part of the palace, where the outside world simply does not exist. The harem isn't just women's quarters like the stories tell. It's a self-contained universe. Wives, concubines, female relatives, and an army of female slaves plus eunuchs to guard them create a web of politics thicker than any spider's silk. Your first task is simple: carry a basket of fresh bread to a side chamber. But even in this small errand, you feel the undercurrent of watchfulness. Every pair of eyes, painted coal-lined, sharp as glass, follows you. Historians still argue whether life in the harem was oppressive imprisonment or a gilded path to influence. But from where you stand, it's both. The floors shine, the food is rich, yet no one here is truly free. Later, you're given water to pour over the hands of a woman seated on cushions. Her robe is emerald silk embroidered in gold. She doesn't look at you when she speaks, but her tone is one that demands obedience. She is one of the Sultan's favorites, you gather, and the room bends around her like sunlight around a jewel. You wonder what twist of fate brought her here. Was she born into wealth? Or was she once in the same market? You were. There's no laughter here, only the faint music of a canon from another room, and the occasional soft murmur of conversation. Even leisure feels rehearsed. In the afternoon, you carry folded linens past a courtyard where women walk in small circles whispering to one another. You catch snippets of conversation, someone's rise in favor, someone else's demotion to the laundry rooms. You tuck these details away. Even here, knowing the currents can keep you afloat. Meals are taken in shifts, long, low tables, piles of rice and lamb. Sherbet sweet enough to sting your teeth. The portions are generous compared to what you've had before, but you eat carefully, not wanting to appear greedy. The older servants glance your way, silently measuring how quickly you adapt. In the harem, being noticed is a dangerous double-edged sword. At night, the chambers are lit by oil lamps that throw soft gold light over painted walls. You're assigned a sleeping spot in a shared room, the air heavy with perfume and whispers. Some women talk about their homelands, weaving stories of mountains, rivers, and family faces now long gone. Others stay silent, eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. As you drift towards sleep, you realize the harem is not so different from the slave market. Both are stages. Both require performance. Only here the costumes are finer, the scripts more subtle, and the stakes far higher. The first sign something is changing comes with a burst of noise from the outer courtyard. Boots on stone, the rhythmic thud of a drum, and a shouted command that makes every servant freeze for half a second. You're ordered to bring a tray of water jugs to the side hall, where a group of boys is lined up. They're all around the same age, anywhere from 10 to 16, and every one of them has the same clipped, anxious posture. These are not ordinary servants. They are Dev Shurme recruits, Christian boys, taken from their families in the Balkans and elsewhere, converted to Islam, and trained to serve in the Sultan's elite corps, the Janissaries. Mainstream history tells you the system offered some of these boys opportunities they never would have had at home education, rank, and wealth. But up close, with the smell of fear and leather armor still fresh, it's hard to see it as anything other than another reshaping of a life without consent. You set the water down, trying not to stare. A wiry instructor paces the line, speaking in clipped Ottoman Turkish. You can't follow every word, but you catch enough discipline, loyalty, obedience. A boy 2 places down gulps water like it's his last drink. The instructor cuffs him lightly for not standing still. The humorless smile that follows is the kind that says, "I can be worse." Somewhere behind the drill yard walls, another group practices archery. The snap of bowstrings is quick and precise, followed by the dull thunk of arrows hitting straw targets. You've heard the Janissaries are paid in silver directly from the Sultan's treasury, that their allegiance is to him alone. Historians still argue whether this made them the most loyal force in the empire, or its most dangerous wildcard. One of the recruits catches your eye, not in challenge, but in the way someone might look at a reflection they don't expect to see. Maybe he recognizes the same lack of choice in your presence here. You look away quickly. Drawing attention in these moments rarely ends well. By midday, the boys are marched toward the barracks. Their steps are in sync already, even though this is clearly only the beginning. You follow at a distance with the cleanup crew picking up dropped items, a ragged leather strap, a chipped wooden practice sword, a single black bead from someone's broken cord. That evening, while clearing the dining hall, you overhear the eunuch overseer telling another servant about a former palace kitchen boy who became a Janissary officer. It's framed as a success story, proof that the system can lift you. But the other servant just shakes his head and mutters, "If the Sultan wills it, maybe." You file that away too. Ambition here is not a ladder. It's a rope you climb only if someone above decides to pull you up. Later, passing through a side gate, you glimpse a Janissary patrol in full dress. Tall hats, shaped like folded cloth towers, coats lined with fur swords hanging easy at their hips. They walk with the loose confidence of men who know the city vows around them. For a moment you wonder what it would be like to wear that uniform to walk without looking over your shoulder. Then you remember the boys in the yard, and the choice you never had, and the thought sours. Night falls and the palace quiets, except for the occasional bark of a guard dog and the rustle of fabric in the corridors. You lie awake on your mat, staring into the dark, the sound of those synchronized boots still echoing in your head. You suspect you'll be hearing them for a long time. The first time you smell the harbor again, you're not sure if it's relief or dread that tightens your chest. The palace gardens had their share of floral perfumes and roasting meats, but the sharp tang of salt water is something else entirely. You've been reassigned, or maybe just lent out to serve aboard one of the Empire's galleys. From the dock, the ship looks like a predator, crouched in the water, long, low, with oars jutting from its sides, like rows of insect legs. The deck bustles with activity, sailors shouting barrels, being rolled aboard coils of rope, tossed from hand to hand. The captain, in a deep blue coat trimmed with silver, gives you a single flat glance before turning away. Your cargo that happens to walk and carry buckets. Below deck, the air changes. It's thick, warm, and heavy, with the smell of tar bilge water and unwashed men. You pass the benches where rowers sit, most of them slaves, some criminals all chained to their seats. Their hands are calloused into hard knots, and their backs ripple with muscle from endless pulling. Mainstream history records the Ottoman Navy's dominance in the Mediterranean for centuries, but doesn't dwell much on the human machinery that made it possible. You're not chained, at least not yet. Your job is to run water to the rowers, carry supplies from hold to deck, and scrub anything the captain's boots happen to touch. Still, you're close enough to feel the boat shudder each time the oars dip and pull. Historians still argue whether life on a galley was worse than field labor, but after your first day of inhaling the stale air below deck, you're ready to put in a vote. Meals are hard bread and salted fish, and always eaten fast. The sea doesn't stop for dinner, and neither does the crew. At night, you curl up in a space barely wider than your shoulders, listening to the constant lap of water against the hull. Sometimes it's soothing. Sometimes it feels like a reminder that escape is only possible if you can swim for hours through open water and survive whoever's waiting on shore. The work is relentless. When the wind dies, the oars take over, and every man strains in rhythm while a drum beats from the bow. Your hands blister from passing buckets of seawater to splash the rowers' backs, keeping them from overheating. The first time you slip and spill some, the overseer's shout cuts sharper than any whip. You don't make the same mistake twice. There's danger too. Pirates, storms, and the possibility of running aground in enemy waters all hang over the voyage. One night, lightning splits the horizon, and the ship rocks so violently you think the timbers might crack. The rowers keep pulling, the drum keeps beating, and the captain just stares ahead, rain plastering his hair to his face. On calmer days, you catch glimpses of beauty, a pod of dolphins pacing the ship, the sun rising in a molten band across the water. The sudden silence when the wind catches and the oars are pulled in. Those moments are short-lived, quickly swallowed by orders barked down the line. Weeks later, when the galley finally returns to port, your legs feel strange on solid ground. You've learned something here, not just about the sea, but about the Empire itself. Whether on land or water, it runs on the backs of people like you, and the view never belongs to the ones doing the work. Your return to land doesn't mean freedom, only a change of chains. But for the first time since your capture, you start hearing whispers about Azatluk manumission. It's not a promise exactly, more like the outline of a door you might never get to open. In the Ottoman Empire, there were a few ways a slave could gain freedom. Some were freed in their master's will. As an act of piety, others earned it through decades of loyal service, and a rare few bought it with money they'd managed to save or hide. Mainstream history frames these as signs of a benevolent system, but you can't help noticing how much they depend on luck, mercy, and the whims of someone else. You're back in the city now, carrying sacks of flour to a bakery owned by your master's cousin. The work is heavy, but the streets are familiar, and that's something. You notice the bakers slip you the occasional heel of bread, the sweet crust still warm. Little gestures matter maybe even more than coins. One evening, while sweeping the shop, you overhear the cousin speaking with a freedman, a tall man with silver hair and a proud posture. He'd once been a palace servant and earned his freedom after 20 years. Now he runs a small spice stall in the bazaar. The cousin jokes about his retirement, but you see the way the freedman's hand lingers on a string of amber prayer beads as if each bead is a reminder of a life he refuses to forget. Historians still argue whether freed slaves truly integrated into Ottoman society or remained marked by their past. From the look on that man's face, you suspect the answer is both. The idea of buying your own freedom lodges in your mind like a seed. You have nothing, no coins, no possessions, but you start looking for ways to earn small favors. You volunteer for extra work that puts you near the market where a friendly vendor might pay you a sliver for carrying goods. You hide those slivers in a loose stone in the bakery's cellar. It's dangerous if you're caught. The money will be taken and your trust gone, but the thought of that hidden stash keeps you moving when your arms ache and your back burns. One day the cousin calls you aside and asks if you'd be willing to take a delivery to the docks. It's risky, plenty of slaves vanish in port towns, but you agree. The delivery goes smoothly, and when you return, he presses a copper coin into your palm for your trouble. It's not much, but it doubles what you've saved so far. There's another path to freedom you've heard of, mukataba, a kind of contract, where a slave agrees to pay their master over time for release. It sounds almost fair, until you realize the payment is set by the master, and they can change their mind at any point. Still, the dream is stubborn. You picture walking through the bazaar as your own person, able to stop at a stall without glancing at someone for permission. Months pass. Your stash grows. It's still nowhere near enough, but you've learned patience here sometimes because you had no choice. Sometimes because rushing only draws attention. You don't tell anyone. Even friends can be dangerous if they're desperate enough. Late one night, lying on your mat, you trace the stone in your mind, the weight of it, the space behind it, the feel of the coins hidden there. It's not freedom yet, but it's proof you've begun to reach for it. And in this place that's already a kind of rebellion, the day you finally hear the words, it doesn't feel real. Your master's cousin calls you into the back of the bakery, where the smell of rising dough wraps around you like a heavy blanket. He speaks slowly, almost casually. You're being released. Not sold, released. The explanation is simple enough. Your years of service have been faithful, and the cousin wants to make an offering of good deeds before the holy month. Maybe it's genuine piety. Maybe it's a way to clear space for a younger, stronger worker. Historians still argue whether such acts were kindness or calculated convenience, but you're too stunned to care which side is right. There is no dramatic unlocking of chains, because by now your chains have been invisible for years. Instead, he hands you a folded slip of paper, a manumission certificate bearing his seal. It says in formal Ottoman script that you are no longer property. You tuck it into your tunic as if it might vanish if you blink too long. The first steps outside feel wrong, as if you've left something behind by mistake. The city is the same vendors shouting over pomegranates, children chasing each other in narrow lanes. The muezzin's call rippling over rooftops. But it all tilts strangely without the weight of an owner's shadow over you. Freedom is not instant joy. You still have no home, no family here, no trade to call your own. The coins you'd hidden behind the cellar stone are retrieved, counted, and found lacking. Enough for a week of food, maybe two if you eat carefully. The freedman from the spice stall spots you in the bazaar and offers you a day's work hauling sacks. By sunset, your arms ache. But the coins are yours, unshadowed by anyone's claim. In the weeks that follow, you realize that free doesn't mean safe. There are those who see a freed slave as easy prey employers who offer half the normal wage landlords who claim rent in advance and vanish. You learn to navigate quickly, to make allies where you can, to keep moving if a situation smells wrong. One evening, passing near the old market where you were first sold, you pause. The same skylights cut the sunlight into sharp patterns on the floor. The same raised platform stands in the center. But the faces are new, the voices strange to you. You don't stay long. The air feels heavier here even now, still. You notice something unexpected. You no longer walk with your head down. The habit lingers, but not the feeling that accompanies it. The Empire has left its mark on you in the way you read a room before speaking, in the instinct to listen more than talk, in the knowledge that luck can turn on a coin's edge. And yet for the first time, you carry something it can't take back. Your life is yours to shape, even if the clay is rough and the tools are few. You are in every sense that matters walking forward. The night folds itself gently around you now. The streets quiet, the lamps flicker in the breeze, and the city exhales into its own sleep. You find a place to sit on a low stone wall, warmed by the day's sun, and let your breath slow. The hard edges of memory soften in the cool air. You think of the sea, the palace tiles, the marketplace skylights, the sound of boots on stone. All of it is behind you, yet somehow still part of you. And in this quiet, you understand, survival was never the whole story. The rest begins now. The night air grows softer, each sound thinning like the last threads of a dream. Your shoulders ease, your breathing lengthens, and the pulse that's been drumming in your ears for years begins to fade. The city around you seems to drift further away, its streets dimming, its voices turning to murmurs. You feel the stone beneath you holding its gentle warmth, grounding you here in this quiet. The air smells faintly of baking bread from somewhere far off, mingled with the salt of the distant sea. You let those scents carry you unhurried, like a tide that knows exactly where it's going. The weight of old chains is gone now, not forgotten, but transformed into something lighter, threads you can weave into the life ahead. And as the lamps flicker, you close your eyes, safe in the knowledge that the next dawn will come, without summons or command. Sweet dreams. Hey guys, tonight we're heading back about 5,000 years to a land where the rivers themselves are the reason you're alive. You stand barefoot in the damp grass of a low pasture, the smell of wet reeds and sheep lanolin clinging to the night air. The moon hangs pale over the slow, dark ribbon of the Euphrates, and somewhere out there, a wolf coughs, probably eyeing your flock. You probably won't survive this, honestly, between Raiders' disease and the occasional flash flood. You're one bad day away from becoming a cautionary clay tablet inscription. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've been up since before dawn, which in Mesopotamia means the faintest silver light reflecting off irrigation channels while frogs complain in the reeds. The sheep stir and stretch short, bristly tails, wagging lazily, and you stretch too, rolling your shoulders under the coarse wool tunic that never stops itching. You've got about 80 animals, which makes you neither rich nor poor. Just one more caretaker in an endless chain stretching back to the first people who figured out that keeping sheep alive was easier than hunting them every week. The pasture is green for now, thanks to the seasonal flooding, but you know the grass will dry to brittle straw soon enough. Your day starts by driving the flock toward the higher ground, tapping the stragglers with your shepherd's crook, a solid staff with a smooth, worn curve polished by years of use. You whistle, and two half-wild dogs bound ahead, barking in the direction you want the sheep to go. Historians still argue whether those early sheepdogs were formally trained or just clever opportunists hoping for scraps. But either way, they earn their keep. Breakfast is a small round of barley bread, baked hard enough to chip a tooth, and a handful of dates sticky with syrup. You eat while walking, eyes constantly scanning for trouble. Trouble can mean a wolf, a jackal, or another shepherd's flock wandering too close. It can also mean the king's tax collector worse than wolves, because you can't chase them off with a stick. One mainstream fact in many Mesopotamian city-states, shepherds paid part of their tax in wool or lambs, which meant your best animals sometimes walked away without you. You pause near a stand of tamarisk trees, where the air smells faintly of salt, a reminder that the rivers carry not just life, but also the creeping salinization that can ruin fields and pastures over time. There's an old shepherd nearby missing 3 teeth, but with a laugh like gravel in a jar, who swears some shepherds sprinkle powdered gypsum in the soil to keep the grass healthy. Whether that actually works or is just a folk fix, no one can quite agree. By midday, the heat is already pressing down, and you guide the flock toward the shade of a low hill. The sheep flop down, chewing cud, while you carve idle patterns into the dirt with your staff. You hum an old work song, its words so ancient, no one remembers what half of them mean. The rhythm keeps your mind from drifting too far, because if you fall asleep now, you might wake up to find half your flock gone. Still, you steal a moment to stretch out in the grass, eyes tracing the slow dance of buzzards in the white-blue sky. The smell of warm wool surrounds you, a strangely comforting blanket of life and responsibility. By the time shadows lengthen, you're heading back toward the village, dust rising from 80 pairs of hooves. Children run out to meet you, shouting and laughing, chasing the sheep as they funnel into the night pen. You pat the dogs, tie the gate, and lean against the fence as the sun drops behind the date palms. Another day survived no small feat in a land where the rivers give and the rivers take. You settle down with a bowl of lentil stew, a crust of bread, and the quiet hum of crickets in the dark. Somewhere you know tomorrow's trouble is already waiting. The first light always feels like a secret you share with the land. You're awake before the sun itself, lying on your reed mat and listening. The sheep stir in their pen, a low rustling of hooves and breath, like a soft drum roll for the day ahead. You stretch bones clicking and pull your wool cloak tighter against the dawn chill. The eastern horizon glows faintly, the kind of gold that belongs only to mornings. By the time you've slung your shepherd's crook across your back and untied the gate, the sun is peeking over the flat line of fields. Your sheep push forward, noses to the earth, eager for the sweeter grasses by the river. The Euphrates is a living thing. From here you can hear its deep, slow voice, the gurgle of water folding over itself, the slap of small waves against mud banks. The river smells of silt and green, a scent that clings to your skin long after you've stepped away. Its edges are soft in places, treacherous in others. You've seen animals sink into the bank and vanish under the current before anyone could reach them. So you keep the flock back whistling when they wander too close. The morning light spreads across the pastures, and the air is filled with movement, the flash of fish in the shallows, the dart of a dragonfly, the cautious step of a water bird picking its way between reeds. Overhead, a hawk circles its shadow, skimming the grass. You keep an eye on it. A lamb could vanish into those talons without a sound. You've learned to read the land the way a scribe reads a tablet. A ripple in the tall grass might mean a jackal slipping closer. A patch of trampled reeds could mean another shepherd brought his flock here yesterday, stripping the best grazing bare. Sometimes the trouble comes in human form, thieves from the city, who know a single ewe can fetch more than a month's wages in the market. The sheep graze in a slow-moving wave, their wool catching the light. You can tell them apart without thinking the old ram with a twisted horn, the skittish yearling who jumps at shadows, the mother with a distinctive black patch over one eye. You know their voices too, the deep throaty bleat of the ram, the thin urgent call of a lamb searching for its dam. Every so often you crouch by the river to refill your skin bag, letting the cool water run over your hands. You watch the current carry bits of reed and petals from some far-off blossom. That same current will pass the city's docks by midday, then wind its way toward lands you've never seen. The river connects everything your pasture, the markets, the palace, even the distant marshes where the water turns silver in the sun. By mid-morning, the heat begins to press down. The flock drifts toward a cluster of tamarisk trees, where the shade offers a brief reprieve. You follow, chewing a strip of dried fig, feeling the grit of the seeds between your teeth. Somewhere upriver, someone is beating clothes against a flat rock. The rhythmic thud carries faintly through the air. This is the shepherd's morning half-watchman, half-wanderer. You walk the same route so often that your feet know where to step without thinking, yet every day is different. A new bird's nest in the reeds, a fresh set of tracks in the mud, clouds piling low on the horizon, hinting at rain. Sometimes you hum as you walk, snatches of old songs your father taught you. They're not for the sheep. They don't care for music, but for yourself, to keep the long hours from stretching too thin. Other times you walk in silence, letting the sound of the river and the soft tearing of grass be enough. By the time the sun climbs high, the flock has eaten its fill of the morning grass. Some lie down, to chew their cut eyes half shut in contentment. You lean against your crook, scanning the shimmering air for movement. The dangers are fewer in the heat, but never gone. You know that well enough. Here in the space between the first light and the midday blaze, you feel the quiet weight of your work. You are the thin line between your flock and the chaos of the world beyond the riverbank. No one sees the small decisions you make, which path to take, which pasture to use, when to turn the sheep back toward safety. But those choices are what keep wool on their backs, milk in their udders, and food on your table. And so the morning passes, not in haste, but in a slow unfolding, like the river itself. You are here, the sheep are safe, and for now, that is enough. By the time the sun stands directly overhead, the air feels heavy enough to press on your shoulders. The grass that sparkled with dew this morning now lies flat and brittle, each blade sighing under the heat. The sheep have retreated to whatever shade they can find under tamarisk branches, beside the low clay ridge, even pressed close together to share whatever shadow their bodies can make. You've learned that this is the hour when everything slows. Even the river moves differently, now its surface glaring white under the sun. The gurgle and slap of water that was so lively at dawn has softened, muffled under the heat. Insects still hum, but their rhythm is lazier, the wing beats slower. A grasshopper lands on your knee and sits there, too tired to spring away. You choose your seat carefully, a patch of shade where a tamarisk's thin leaves weave a shifting pattern on the ground. The soil here is cracked from seasons of dry heat, each fissure like a vein in an old hand. You lean your shepherd's crook against your shoulder, take a sip from your water skin, and let the warm mineral taste settle on your tongue. Midday is both the safest and most dangerous time. Most predators seek their own shade and rest, but it's also the hour when a shepherd's guard can slip. A drowsy mind misses the sudden rustle of reeds, the faint snap of a twig under a stranger's foot. You've heard stories of flocks lost because the shepherd dozed in the heat. You tell yourself you won't be one of them, so you watch. Not just the sheep, but the edges of the land. The bend in the river where shadows shift strangely. The ridge where a lone figure could crouch, almost invisible. You listen too for the low murmur of sheep content in the shade, for the single bleat that means something is wrong. Now and then you walk through the flock, your hand brushing the wool of each ewe, feeling for signs of trouble. A cut from thorns, the heat of a fever, a limp that wasn't there this morning. The sheep know you trust your presence, though they still shift slightly when you pass. You murmur to them without thinking, just sounds, not words, letting your voice be another shade of calm in the air. From your spot you can see far across the pasture. The world wavers in the heat, shapes bending and blurring, making the horizon look like it's floating. In the distance, a group of date palms marks the edge of someone else's land, their leaves rattling in a faint breeze you can't feel here. A small drama plays out near the riverbank, two herons competing for the same stretch of shallow water. One drives the other off with a sharp jab of its beak, then stands still and elegant, waiting for fish to drift close enough. You watch for longer than you mean to. The rhythm of the heron's patience feels familiar. You live by the same kind of waiting. When the heat becomes too much, you soak a scrap of cloth in the river and lay it over your neck. The shock of cool makes you suck in a breath, then sigh. The sheep shift, slightly sensing your movement, but soon settle again. Some are chewing cud, with eyes half closed. Others lie so still they look like they've melted into the earth. Occasionally the stillness is broken by the call of another shepherd somewhere upriver. The sound is faint, shaped by distance and heat, but you know it instantly, a drawn-out rising tone that could carry for miles. You answer with your own call, short and low, just enough to say, "I am here." Out in these fields, even a stranger's voice is a reminder that you're not alone. The sun begins its slow tilt westward, and the light shifts. Shadows stretch again, thin at first, then thicker, cooler. The air loosens its grip on your skin. The sheep stir, sensing the change. They nose at the grass, nibbling here and there, preparing for the evening graze before the day fades. You stand dust sticking to the backs of your legs and stretch until your joints pop. Another long walk awaits. But for now, you take one last look at the river. It flows on patient and endless, carrying the day toward its end. You gather your flock with a whistle, your voice carrying easily now in the cooler air. They come slowly, as if reluctant to leave their patches of shade, but they come all the same. The day is not done, and neither is your work. The sun no longer blazes from above, but slides low, bathing the land in gold so thick it almost feels like you could touch it. The sheep stir with new purpose, their shadows long and soft-edged as they drift into motion. Evening is their second feeding time, and your signal that the long return to the fold begins. The air is cooler now, yet still warm against your skin, carrying the faint scent of dry earth-trampled grass and the musk of the flock. Insects grow bolder again, their high-pitched whines weaving in and out of your steps. Somewhere to the west, a turtle dove calls the slow, mournful notes falling like droplets into the still air. You lead the way along a familiar path, a narrow track worn smooth by hooves and bare feet. The earth here is pale and dusty, crumbling under your sandals, rising in soft clouds that cling to the wool of the sheep as they pass. On either side, tufts of grass catch the sunset light glowing, as though lit from within. Your eyes stay moving. Dusk is a liminal hour, not as drowsy as midday, not as secure as morning. Shadows grow quickly now, pooling in hollows, lengthening across the trail. A fox, if it dares, will use this light. A thief, too, though their steps are heavier, easier to hear if you are listening. The flock moves like a single slow river, but every so often a lamb drifts too far, tempted by a patch of tender shoots. Your whistle cuts through the soft evening hum, and the lamb leaps to rejoin its mother. You keep count in your head, without even meaning, to each animal a note in a melody you've learned by heart. The river stays on your left, running parallel to the trail for a while. It's changed since midday. The glare is gone, replaced by ripples tinted in bronze and pink. A fish jumps, catching the last light, before disappearing with a plop. Along the far bank, the silhouettes of willows lean over their thin branches, brushing the surface like fingers combing hair. Halfway home, you pass a grove of date palms. The air under their fronds feels cooler, almost damp. You pause, letting the flock mill about and drink from your water skin. The water is warm now, but welcome all the same. You rub the back of your neck and watch the last of the sun's disk sink behind the western ridge, turning the sky to a layered wash of crimson, violet, and gold. By the time you step out of the grove, the first star has appeared, bright solitary, like a shepherd for the heavens. You know more will follow, but for now it feels like the sky is holding its breath. The sheep feel it too. Their bleats are softer, their steps more measured. A faint breeze picks up from the east, carrying with it the smell of smoke from distant cooking fires. Somewhere ahead, another shepherd's dog barks twice, sharp and short. It's not a warning, just an announcement. The sound reassures you. The last stretch toward the village takes you past a low rise of sandstone. You know every curve of it, the way the light plays across its surface in the morning, the cool shadow it throws at night. Tonight its shape is only a darker shape against the darkening sky. The sheep file past it without hesitation, their trust in your lead stronger than their wariness of the dark. At the crest of a small hill, you can see home the faint glimmer of lamps in doorways, the thin columns of smoke curling upward. The sight never fails to ease something inside you even on the most uneventful days. The final descent is slow and careful, the ground uneven, the path winding between clusters of wild sage. Their scent rises sharp and clean as your sandals brush them. One last whistle, and the flock gathers tight, ready to pass through the narrow gate into the fold. Inside, they settle quickly, some lying down at once, others nosing at the feed trough. You close the gate, check the latch twice, then lean your crook against the wall. The day has ended, but the watch never truly does. In the stillness of dusk, with the stars beginning to scatter overhead, you feel the weight of the hours in your muscles, and the quiet satisfaction of having brought every life in your care safely home. Night has a way of arriving quietly here. No great rush of wind, no sudden drop in temperature, just a slow deepening of shadow, a hush that settles over the land as though the earth itself exhales. You sit outside the fold, back against the low stone wall, crook resting across your knees. Inside, the sheep shift and sigh their woolly bodies, giving off the faint, grassy scent of the day's grazing. Above you, the sky is no longer gold or violet, but a deep, inky blue. Stars are appearing in earnest now, not scattered like shy guests, but crowding the heavens in patterns you've known all your life. You find Orion's belt first, 3 bright points in a perfect line, and follow the arc to the great hunter's shoulders. It's an old habit tracing these constellations. They remind you that others long before you kept watch over flocks beneath the same sky. The air is cool enough to draw the warmth from your skin, yet not so cold that you need more than your woolen cloak. In the distance, you hear the faint rhythmic chirp of crickets, joined by the occasional hoot of an owl. Once a small animal rustles in the scrub beyond the wall, too small to trouble the sheep you judge, though your hand still finds the smooth wood of your staff. Your eyes adjust, and you see more than darkness. The shapes of the hills emerge in layers closer, ones in shadowed gray, further ones in the faint silver glow of starlight. You can even make out the sheen of the river, a pale ribbon winding its way toward the horizon. A flicker catches your attention not from the sky, but from the village beyond the ridge. A torch is moving there, slow and steady. Perhaps another shepherd making his own rounds. You return your gaze to the flock. Most are lying down now, ruminating, their jaws moving in slow, circular motions. A few stand near the trough, still nibbling at the hay you set out. Time moves differently in the vigil. You're not counting hours, only moments, the settling of the sheep, the drift of a cloud across the moon, the way your own breathing falls in rhythm with the night. Your thoughts wander. You recall the day's roots, the patches of grass that looked promising for tomorrow, the lamb that strayed and had to be whistled back. But the night has a way of quieting even thoughts. After a while, you're not thinking at all, only listening. Then it comes, the distant, unmistakable yip of a jackal. One, then another. The sound prickles at the back of your neck, but it's far off, maybe along the dry gully to the east. You sit up straighter, ears straining. Silence returns heavy, but not oppressive. You shift your grip on the crook and scan the darkness. Nothing moves. Still, you remain alert. An hour passes, or perhaps 2. The moon rises higher, washing the fold in pale light. You walk the perimeter once your steps quiet on the packed earth. The latch is secure, the wall unbreached. Inside the flock sleeps their sides, rising and falling in unison. You return to your seat, pulling the cloak tighter. The sky now is a sea of stars, so many that the dark between them seems smaller. The Milky Way arcs overhead, a shimmering band that looks almost like the dust of some distant celestial road. You follow it with your eyes until your gaze drifts back down to the horizon, where the first hints of pale light suggest that dawn is still some hours away. When you finally allow your body to relax, you lean your head against the wall and close your eyes. Not to sleep, but to rest. You'll hear anything that approaches. You always do. And in this watch, beneath this vast and ancient sky, you feel both very small and very necessary. The flock sleeps on the stars, wheel overhead, and the night holds steady around you, like a promise. The first sign of morning is not the light, it's the sound. Somewhere far beyond the hills, a rooster crows. Then another answers closer, this time. You open your eyes to find the stars still faintly visible, but the eastern horizon has begun to pale, as though a thin wash of milk has been poured across the sky. You rise slowly, cloak slipping from your shoulders, joints stiff from the night stillness. The sheep are stirring now. A few shake themselves, wool puffing slightly in the chill. Lambs bleat softly, searching for their mothers, and ewes respond with low, steady murmurs. You walk to the gate, unlatching it with the quiet familiarity of 1,000 mornings. Beyond the fold, the earth smells different, fresher, sharper, the scent of dew clinging to grass. The air holds that delicate in-between temperature, cool enough to wake you, fully warm enough to promise a comfortable day ahead. The flock begins to file out, not in a rush, but with the lazy discipline of creatures that know the rhythm. You walk behind, tapping your crook gently against the ground, steering a hesitant lamb away from the wrong path. The earth is soft underfoot, a little damp, and your sandals leave shallow prints in the soil. The light grows as you ascend the slope toward the ridge. The grass glistens with dew, and each step sends tiny droplets clinging to your legs. The sound of the river reaches you, a slow, hushed rushing over stone. Above, the sky deepens from pale ivory to soft rose streaked with faint ribbons of gold. At the ridge, you pause. The world has changed again in the moments it took you to climb. Shadows retreat down the valley, chased by a glow so gentle it seems to brush the land rather than flood it. The hills' dark shapes through the night now reveal their textures: scattered rocks, patches of wildflowers, the winding thread of a goat path. The sheep spread out in the pasture, heads down, beginning their first bites of the day's graze. You watch them, noting their easy pace. A shepherd's work is to be present without pressing, to know when to guide, and when to let the animals choose their course. Your own breakfast waits in the pouch, slung at your side. A small heel of bread, a handful of dried figs. You eat standing, eyes scanning the landscape. It's not vigilance born of fear, but of habit. The land tells you things if you pay attention: the shifting of birds in the grass, the sudden silence in the air, the distant rise of dust that might mean travelers. By now the sun itself has begun to lift its edge, peeking over the far hills. Light spills down the slope, catching the curve of each sheep's back, turning their wool to halos of pale fire. You take a deep breath, feeling it fill you the way the heat will soon fill the valley. Some mornings, you think about the others who have done this before you, your father and his father before him. You imagine their feet on the same worn paths, their eyes on the same horizon. The continuity is comforting, as steady as the returning dawn. When the sun is fully above the ridge, you settle onto a flat rock, the crook resting across your knees. Around you, the flock moves in a slow, constant pattern. Grays lift, heads shift, graze again. Time stretches. You have no need to measure it. The day has begun, and it will be long, but for now, there is only this: the warmth of the sun, the sound of sheep, and the soft weight of the sky pressing gently down over all. By mid-morning, the pasture is awake with quiet life. The sun has warmed the hills enough that the last pockets of shadow have melted away. Bees hum lazily among the wildflowers. A kestrel circles high above its wings, catching the light, like a blade flashing in the distance. You sit on your rock, watching the sheep work steadily through the grass. Your hand rests on the crook fingers, curling and uncurling as if tracing the memory of movement. The air smells of time, crushed under hooves. It's then that you notice something unusual, a shape moving along the far ridge. Too tall to be a sheep. Too upright to be a wild goat. At first you think it might be another shepherd, one of the neighbors passing through. But the figure doesn't carry a crook or a staff. There's no flock trailing behind. Just a single person walking slowly, almost deliberately toward your valley. You rise without thinking, brushing crumbs from your tunic. The sheep glance up at the shift in your posture, then return to grazing. You step to the edge of the ridge, narrowing your eyes against the sun. The figure grows clearer with each step. A man, his cloak travel-worn, the hem dark with dust. His hair hangs loose, tangled from the wind, and over one shoulder he carries a small leather satchel. Something about the way he walks feels different. Not hurried, but not aimless either. When he reaches the low stone wall that marks the pasture's edge, he pauses. You stand still, waiting for him to speak first. Travelers are not rare in these hills, but each one brings a piece of the world with them, and sometimes trouble. "Good morning," he calls, his voice low but carrying. You nod but say nothing yet. Let him show his intent. "I saw your flock from the ridge," he continues. "Thought perhaps I might ask for a drink of water." You point to the small clay jug at your feet. He crosses the last few yards, moving carefully so as not to spook the sheep. You pour water into a wooden cup and hand it to him. He drinks in silence, then wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. "You've been out here since dawn," he says, almost as a statement, not a question. "That's a shepherd's work," you reply, voice even. He studies you for a moment, his gaze not sharp but heavy, as if weighing something. Then he says, "There's talk in the village about strange signs, people seeing things they can't explain. I thought you might have noticed anything unusual up here." The words hang between you like mist. You think of the flicker of light you saw in the hills the other night, the way the sheep had stirred uneasily before midnight. But you say nothing. Shepherds learn to keep their observations close until they know who's asking. He doesn't press. Instead, he takes another sip of water, then glances toward the horizon. "If you see anything odd, keep watch." His tone is not warning exactly, but it's not casual either. He thanks you, sets the cup down, and turns to leave. But before he steps past the wall, he adds one more sentence, almost to himself. Sometimes the hills aren't as empty as they seem. You watch him go, his figure shrinking back into the distance. The sheep graze on, oblivious. The valley feels the same breeze, the same sunlight. Yet the air seems a little thicker, as though it's holding something you can't quite name. You return to your rock, but your mind is no longer fully with the flock. You keep glancing to the ridge, wondering if you'll see him again, or something else entirely. That evening, the valley glows under a sky brushed in rose and gold. The sheep are penned safely within the low stone enclosure. You've finished your bread and cheese, washed your hands in the cool stream, and stoked a small fire for warmth. But your mind drifts back to the stranger's words. Sometimes the hills aren't as empty as they seem. The phrase rolls through your thoughts like a pebble in a shoe, small but impossible to ignore. The first stars appear. A bat flits overhead, darting in quick zigzag motions. The fire crackles softly. You pull your cloak tighter, sitting so that you can watch both the pen and the darkening ridge. The night settles slow and deep. Sounds sharpen, the chirp of crickets, the soft bleat of a sheep shifting in its sleep, the sigh of the wind brushing through dry grass. You have spent many nights like this, but tonight each sound seems doubled, as if the air itself is listening. An hour passes. The moon lifts above the far ridge, pale and heavy. You remember your grandfather's tales of wanderers who walked these hills under moonlight carrying messages no one was meant to hear. You had always thought them just stories to keep children close to the fire. Then, a flicker. Far along the slope, beyond the stream, something glints. Not fire, not starlight, but a quick silver flash there, and gone. You stand, heart quickening. The sheep shift uneasily, a ripple of movement through the pen. You step to the wall, eyes fixed on the ridge. Another flash, lower this time. You strain to hear, but the night holds its breath. And then, faint, almost too faint to believe a voice. Not words you can make out, just a tone, rising and falling, like someone speaking from far away. You grip your crook. The urge to investigate pulls at you, but so does the stranger's caution. In the end, you choose the shepherd's way. You stay, you watch, you guard. The minutes stretch. Slowly the flashes fade, the voice drifts away into the wind. The sheep settle again, and the night resumes its usual rhythm. You return to the fire, letting its warmth seep into your fingers. Perhaps it was nothing, or perhaps it was something best left unanswered. Either way, you know you'll remember this night. Not for fear, though, there was some of that, but for the way the valley felt alive in a way you'd never noticed before. As though the hills themselves were aware of you watching in return. Your eyelids grow heavy. The fire burns low, casting long shadows that sway like tall grass. You stretch out on your blanket, one hand resting on the crook, the other tucked beneath your head. Above the moon slides higher, silvering the pasture. The sheep breathe slow and steady. The wind hums softly through the stones. Whatever walked these hills tonight, it has passed you by, leaving only stillness behind. And in that stillness, you drift toward sleep. The stranger's warning dissolves into dream, and the valley wraps around you like a quiet, endless lullaby. The fire is only embers, now glowing faintly like tiny suns, resting in their bed of ash. You can hear nothing but the slow, even rhythm of your own breathing, blending with the deep, steady sigh of the wind moving over the ridge. Your body feels heavier with each breath, the warmth from the blanket, and the day's quiet labors wrapping around you. The sheep are safe, the night is calm, and the questions of what might wander the hills no longer matter. Somewhere far above, the stars keep their watch patient, silent, eternal. The moonlight paints soft silver edges on the stones on the pen on your own hands. You let your eyes close, knowing that until dawn, the valley will hold you, protect you, and keep your dreams unbroken. The world is wide, but tonight it has gathered close around you. You are safe. You are home.